Welcome to the first part of our three-part series on Lutheran Schools as Ministry Outreach. Today we are going to be talking with Principal Bob Cahill from Our Fathers Lutheran School in Greenfield, Wisconsin. They have a pretty unique situation there that they fully embraced as a school, and they're ministering to kids from Africa, who some of them learning English for the first time, and some of them coming from some kind of rough situations and being embraced and loved at that school, and how they're working through that both on the school side and the church side. So, Bob, I'm gonna kick the rest off to you. All right?
Okay, thanks,
All right.
Rob. Uh, I have a lot of notes, so if you see me look away, it's because I had to organize my thoughts in some form or fashion. Otherwise, I'd be all over the place. Uh, but first of all, I want to thank you for inviting our fathers to be part of this series. Uh, quite frankly, when I got the email and we were identified as a school that's doing ministry outreach. Um, I have to say we are we don't consider ourselves to be this model perfect, you know, um, example of what it should, how the way it should be done. Um, we are ministering to kids and families of a totally different culture that we, at the time when we took them on, had no idea, about the culture. So, many of our students have been here in America only a few years. Um, as we speak with them and ask them about what they remember from Africa, some of the stories are tough, really tough stories. A lot of cultural things, some adjustments they had to make coming here. Some kids even witnessing things in Africa, violent things that kids should never have to witness. So I invited my staff to give input as to what we would share with everyone in this series. Um, and I will say that my staff has been all in from the very beginning of this endeavor. Um, but they reflected very seriously, said some pretty insightful things to me to share. In fact, one of my most trusted people on staff, um, who works a lot with our Congolese community, um, wrote to me and said, "Are you sure you want to do this? Maybe you should contact the district and say, maybe we shouldn't do this because we don't do that, as well as perhaps we should." And I said, "No, you know what? For what it's worth, we're going to share what we do." And as I said at the beginning, not in a way to say that, hey, this is the best way to do it, because it's certainly, we've made our mistakes and learned some things from it. But, our story really isn't about what we're doing, okay? It's really more about what God is doing through us, um, because it's amazing to see God at work. It's amazing to see how He has brought people to us that we didn't know He was going to bring to us, and they have been instrumental in helping um, take care of the needs, because there are many needs that these kids and their families have. So, so the history behind all of this is that um, in the fall of 2022, I was teaching seventh and eighth grade, homeroom and athletic director, and we we had a need for um, more students. We were around 80-ish, mid 80s, in terms of students, and identified to us this community on the north side whose families were looking for good education, good Christian education.
Morning,
So,
LCO. We will be.
okay, I thought there was a question already. But anyway, and so obviously we needed more enrollment, they needed a good Christian school. So that's kind of how the partnership formed. Because, prior to that, the financial responsibilities were, heavy on the church. Um, and being a choice school, getting more choice dollars in certainly was a way to help lessen that burden on the church. Um, so a gentleman named Lambert, who is from Africa, speaks Swahili because that's what our students' first language is, Swahili, but also speaks English very, very well, was our go-to. Um, and he helped do lots of stuff for us, including getting families enrolled in the choice program, enrolling them in our school on our SIS, our student information system, and even transporting. So in his private van, he transported the students that came to us in that first year, which was about a dozen kids, I think 13 to be exact. Then just around Thanksgiving, there was a vacancy in the principal position. So I became interim principal around Thanksgiving and wore that interim title till the spring when they dropped the interim part. Um, However, I wasn't able to drop the athletic director and seventh and eighth grade teacher part until the end of the school year. So that made for uh, an interesting and exciting and stressful at times year as we try to get things done. But, my staff being the way they are, and they still are that way, just jump in and just embrace everything and helped me with a lot of stuff. Um, so each year we've increased our number of multilingual students, as we call them, and we even have some Hispanic students as well now. Um, and with that increase becomes, also increase in staff and other things that, important as well. So we have gone from that initial about a dozen kids to around 50, just over 50 multilingual students. Um, we hired, um, we had someone part-time working with us with multilingual education and helping kids learn how to read English, um, basically ESL, but now she's full-time. Um, and we're basically at our limit as far as staffing. We really can't take on any more at this point. Um, we we know that one thing that was very obvious to us at the outset was some of these kids were very afraid when they came to us. I mean, we were foreign to them, totally different neighborhood than the ones that they live in, which are not very good neighborhoods. And there's violence that happens in their neighborhoods that is scary. They hear gunshots sometimes at night. They come to us and they didn't know what. And when they first came to us, some of them acted out because they didn't feel comfortable. They didn't know who we were. The old adage, they don't care how much you know, they want to know how much you care. That was really obvious to us. In that when they did, and it wasn't all at once, but when a child got to feeling comfortable and understood how much he or she was loved, then the breakthroughs would start coming. The behaviors would be more positive than negative, and so on. Um, Coming with them as well were a lot of family needs. They, not just educational, but clothing. Kids were coming to us, and they needed shoes, they needed socks. Frankly, they needed underwear. They needed all kinds of clothing. So our congregation embraced all of that, donated clothing, donated money to purchase, underclothes. Um, Also, Mount Zion in Greenfield, it was our sister congregation. Um, Two of their members are actually on staff. Okay, the pastor's wife and the pastor's daughter are on staff with us here. They provided clothing and so on. Racine Lutheran High School has a thrift store, and they were giving us things that were needed. Then, as winter came along in that first year, they needed coats, they needed winter clothing. So we're able to provide that. But fast forwarding, um, we have grown to 127 students um, since that fall of 2022, um, and uh, we don't have room. Because we grew, we had to separate classes because we were in combination, first, second, third, fourth, five, six, and seven, eight. Now it's only seven, eight that's together. Because the other ones have grown so much, which is a good blessing to have, but then we're running out of room. If we had to separate seventh and eighth grade, we don't have a room for them right now. We'd have to get really creative about how to form a room. We might have to do something with our library and section part of it off, to use as a classroom. Um, Good problems, but it also that affected the clothing. So now we don't have really a place to store clothing. Um, so um, Other needs that they have are food, quite honestly. So we serve morning snacks to them every day. We don't have a hot lunch program for our entire school. I don't know if we ever did. If so, it was long before I came. Um, and I know the school was much larger in years gone by. However, we do feed them lunch every day. Um, and that's funded through donations, from the congregation. Um, we have a couple of people that would go out and get fresh fruit every week. They see it on sale here, there, whatever, and bring it in, and just donate it. Um, um, Feeding them also is a challenge in that it wasn't always easy to find something that they would eat because their diet was different. And it was like, what's that? Um, and believe it or not, we have a um, fifth grade student that does not like pizza. I know that's hard to believe, but he doesn't. So when pizza is on the menu for the rest of them, the kitchen makes him something different because it would just go to waste. It just go in the trash. Um, Other challenges were physical, like eyes. Many of the students had bad eyesight, and from what we understand, some of that's cultural. Um, so when I talk about how God is doing things here, when I was looking for a teacher, I had a lead on someone, and um, it didn't pan out. However, her mother worked at an optometrist place. They had a machine. They said, we can bring this machine in and we can test all of your kids for free, all of the kids. So they did that at the beginning of the school year, this school year, uh, at an event where all the parents come and they do their final registration type stuff in the gym, and she tested them all, and now they have free eyeglasses, those that needed them. So it's a really, as we say, a God thing. We would not have been able to do that if we were looking around, but he presented that to us, and that's how that happened. Um, obviously, the obvious school supplies, needed, donated by congregations, both congregations and so on. Um, I think that that's kind of, where we've tried to meet them, but then also books, not having books at home, so sending books home. Last year we had some materials. I'm looking at the picture across the way there. Uh, all the kids were given things from Lutheran Heritage Foundation in Swahili to take home, okay, and to their families. So that's just, that's not us. That's Lutheran Heritage Foundation jumping in and going, "Hey, this is good right here." Um, Transportation, I mentioned, um, started out with one person transporting, and then as the numbers grew, we, we needed more. So we own three vans right now that we use to transport students morning and afternoon, and even that's not enough, because we do have others that bring kids in their vehicles, um, just as a way to help out. There are uh, some of the families that can drive their kids to school. Um, the dads generally are second and third shift people in factories. So that makes it a little bit difficult, um, when with transportation, with other things as well. Um, um, but transportation is still a challenge that we have to address, um, and we're constantly trying to find new ways of doing that. Um, Another thing that transportation helped us with is the assimilation of students into the entire culture of being an Our Fathers Lutheran School Trojan. Um, in that first year, if a student wanted to do something extra, like play volleyball or basketball, or one of the athletic teams, they would have to make sure they had somebody that could pick them up afterwards, someone that could get them to the games wherever they were. Um, and it became obvious at the end of that first year that we needed to do something so that students felt more like they're part of the school, rather than, yeah, I go to school there and I go home and that's it. I don't do anything else extra. Um, and we know that how important it is for kids to feel like they are part of something. Okay, athletics can do that. Um, and so with the three vans, now we have the ability to take kids home that aren't doing those special things, um, and then have a van available to take kids home after those things. And the athletics, just one of them. Other activities like trunk or treat, obviously an annual thing. We do a family game night, board game night, which kids really love. And then other special things, performances, so Christmas program that we do in the evening, spring fair that we'll do in May. Um, Generally, parents have a hard time getting to those things because of the timing of them. They're at night, and the dads are at work. Um, and so what we've done is we keep the students. We communicate, obviously, to the parents that we're keeping your children today, and they'll come home after the program. It'll be about this time. So we keep them here. We have activities for them to do in the interim, in other words, between the end of school and the beginning of the program that they're participating in. Um, we feed them, obviously, and then we take them home. So the vans, having those, been very important, and it's helped make kids feel like, hey, this is where I go to school. This is my place. These are my people. You know, um, and I've seen and continue to see, on social media, that there are certain families in our school who have gone the extra mile to invite kids and go get them from their homes, and they go out bowling, they go to a Bucks game, they do things socially, which is really, really a very cool thing. Um, and it kind of warms your heart when you see all of that. It warms my heart in the morning as I greet students when they come in the door. There are times where um, kids are getting off a van and someone else is coming in being, dropped off by mom, and they grab hands and they walk down the hallway together, and that's usually little girls, but the fact that you've got someone from Africa and someone clearly not from Africa, and they just are happy to see each other walking down the hall, like, they're like, this is my friend, you know. So that's a very, very cool thing for us. um Another way in which we have tried to assimilate, and I'm going to reach for my charger cord. I thought I had enough power, and it looks like I better plug this in. Um, is that our music teacher I mentioned is the daughter of Pastor Cook there at Mount Zion. Um, Wonderfully gifted young lady, and she has gone the extra mile to find from a Swahili hymnal, although it's Kenyan Swahili, um, and taught all the students these hymns, um, and and other songs that fit in with what's going on with her music program. So it's not unusual to come to our Christmas program and have at least one thing sung in Swahili. Yeah, and everybody knows it, except for those of us that are not in music class. We just enjoy it. Um, we had a parent that caught wind that there was, I'm saying, no, grandparent. No, back up. Great grandparent of some of our students, um, who understood that there was a multilingual student who wanted to be in band and didn't have an instrument. And so donated enough to get a trumpet. And that kid was over the moon, um, comes to me multiple days a week during his recess time to get permission to go into the conference room and practice his trumpet. So he's very, very dedicated to that. So um, once again, helping kids feel like they're part of something. Okay, not just coming here to school, doing their homework and going home and doing more homework. Um, so, but the challenges that we've seen, I've mentioned some of them, but the obvious big one is the language. Um, some kids have come to us, pretty proficient in speaking English, but reading English, writing English, no. And some of their parents are the same way. If they do know English, and not very many of them do, um, they they can't sometimes read it very well. Or if they know Swahili, sometimes they don't know how to read Swahili. It's just for them, it's a spoken language. So communicating with them on different things has gotten to be at times challenging. We have on our school website a tab to click on to where it changes everything into Swahili. So if they can read Swahili, then they can read that. Um, some of them, may not have devices at home, however, to be able to read that. And um, our our school website isn't real friendly when it comes to pulling it up on your phone. It's it's more for a laptop or a tablet or something like that. Um, so sometimes in trying to communicate, everything that we send home is in both languages. Okay, permission forms, information on this, that, and the other, everything in both languages, um, so that they can read, sign, and return if that's what they need to do. Um, we've used Google Translate a lot. Some of the parents have things on their phones to where it will change into Swahili, because I will text a parent and it will get to them. They'll read it in Swahili. They'll write back to me. It comes to me in English. Not as many have that though. So that makes it a challenge, especially if we're trying to communicate something important, perhaps a behavior issue that needs attention, or an academic issue, that needs attention. As far as here at school, as we've gone through the years, we've had, young ones come to us knowing no English at all. So I'm talking about 4K, 5K kids. And so many times they have a sibling here that does know more English than obviously they do. And so we have leaned on at times the older sibling to help translate. But those younger ones are sponges and they soak it up and they learn the language a lot faster and easier than if we have someone come to us in 5th or 6th grade, which we've had. Okay. Usually the ones that come to us in 5th or 6th grade are pretty decent with speaking English, but writing it, once again, reading it, not so much. And then even vocabulary is a challenge right there. So which lends into the next challenge, which is really educational challenges. While they're the multilingual students oftentimes are quick learners, it typically takes between 5 and 7 years for them to become pretty proficient. And if they're coming to us in 5th grade, we don't have that many years with them. The younger ones, yeah, you got quite a bit. And our teachers are still learning how to deal with their classrooms, because their classrooms have the mix of multilingual and people that just grew up speaking English. Now our resource people will come and do either pullouts with small groups or push-ins. In other words, where they'll come in and they'll hang out with the teacher and they will assist those who need help with understanding stuff. It's still a challenge for our teachers to think of and plan their lessons in a way that's going to reach everybody. So that's probably one of our biggest challenges that we need to address. And they're willing to learn. It's just, it takes a lot. Before we started this ministry with Congolese families, no one had ever thought that they would ever be in the situation that they're in. So it's a total different shift of thinking. So also with challenges, behavior. Okay. So kids are kids and they're sinners just like we are. And sometimes when they're uncomfortable with something, they resort to what they've learned in their neighborhoods. And they're a minority in their neighborhoods, in the sense that they're going to a Christian school and the others in their neighborhood are going to a public school. So they're learning things that are being learned in public schools and how to deal with conflict and how to treat others and even some language issues that then come here and are used here in the classroom or on the playground or wherever. So those behavior challenges, are certainly there and aggressive behaviors have gone down, and that becomes also um, it came in time with, um, as I mentioned earlier, kids learning how much they're cared about, and not just from their teachers, but their classmates, um, and helping them gain skills and strategies to deal with their frustrations and um, and their disagreements with one another. Um, Amazingly enough, um, if if someone who speaks Swahili is going to be mean to somebody, they're being mean to someone that also speaks Swahili. I know it's like what? Because sometimes it's the she can't read very well. And so we're making fun of her because she doesn't read as well as we do. Not understanding that, you don't read very well yourself, sir, but you're quick to point out that she doesn't read very well. So it's this kind of a sad thing that happens when you're trying to get them to help and support one another because they're on this journey together of trying to learn English. Um, but we have had to at times suspend students. Um, Sometimes I've had to suspend students indefinitely, meaning that you cannot come back until mom or dad comes back with you and we meet together. And if we need an interpreter, please bring one. Otherwise, we will use, Google Translate, which kind of slows down the meeting, but it still can be pretty productive using that. Um, when we've done that, it's been a positive thing. Parents have reacted very well, very positive to it. Um, Students have learned to change some things up, to get better with things. Um, we've had to expel, and that's after um, a lot of redirecting and a lot of chances and but once students start to affect everybody else in the class, and it just doesn't seem like that behavior is going to change, even though, we've worked with the parent too, we just can't continue in that. So we don't like to do that, but we have. Um, and I really thought I would lose a second child when one was expelled earlier in the year, um, because the sibling. And I thought, well, mom might just take the sibling and send them both somewhere else. And dad was still living in Africa, so that didn't make anything. That made things a little more complicated too. But no, mom chose to keep the other one in the school. And understanding that, they understand that this is a really good place for them. It's obviously not the best. We've got our problems, our challenges, um, but they understand it's certainly better than their alternatives in their neighborhoods. Um, so we have to teach manners, um, social skills, things like looking at people when you speak to them, say responding good morning when someone says good morning to you. Um, Speaking in English is something that we've gone back and forth on. Um, we initially allowed them to use Swahili as they needed to, in conversation with each other. Um, then we said, no, we want them just to do English. And then we went back to, okay, yeah, they can use some Swahili, but some of the problems that started to happen in just this year is that some students figured out that they could use Swahili as a way to cover up what they're saying, mean things that they were saying, inappropriate things that they were saying. Um, However, they didn't think far enough ahead in that game to realize that some of their own Swahili speaking classmates were going to rat them out and say, you know what he really said? Um, so we've gone back to then with the understanding with the students that while you're here, we really want you to use English because you're trying to learn English. So even in social settings such as, the lunchroom and recess and, sports and, after school stuff, we want you to use English because the more you use it, the more you hear it, the more proficient you're going to become with that. So we have to give gentle reminders when they're using Swahili, but it certainly has cut down on the um, insulting other students in Swahili, or even, saying something about the teacher if the child is angry with the teacher. Um, so um, we we've had to, this is kind of a cool breakthrough, but confession and absolution has been something that they weren't always used to. Um, and so for them to, because we obviously are teaching them those things when they realize that, hey, it's forgiven. We're done. We're like not going to talk about it anymore because to them in their culture, restoration is really super important. Um, when a teacher or an adult has to speak to a child who has done something wrong, we have learned that we have to quickly restore the relationship with them so they understand we still love you. Yeah, we had to get after you for that. We had to give you a consequence for that, but we still love you and Jesus loves you. And now we're going to move on from here. So that's been a rather cool thing. We have a new pastor. Some of you know him, Pastor Fanker. Um, he has brought to us a morning devotion thing that we do every day with the students. So it's an all-school devotions in the gym. Um, he leads it uh, all the way up to like playing the piano for the hymn that we sing during devotions. Of course, Wednesday is chapel, which he also leads. He doesn't play the organ though. Our organist actually shows up. Um, but he has brought a spirit of togetherness by having that morning devotions with the kids. He also teaches in the classrooms 4 days a week, um, which is catechesis in grades 5 through 8. Um, so that's, which is something our former pastors had done, except with the former pastors only did 3 days a week because they either took Monday off or they took Friday off, and Pastor Fanker takes Friday afternoon off. Okay, which is kind of cool for us because then we get to see him every day, and the kids get to learn from him every day. Um, so,
Bob, I want to make sure we have a little time here for
yep,
questions and some follow-up.
yep.
Is this a good time? You got another challenge in there?
No, I've got a lot of joys I could jump through quickly if you want.
Absolutely. We need to hear the joys. And
Yeah, I know, right?
those are
Uh,
the best, right?
Yeah, obviously, reaching kids with the gospel every day, is the biggest joy that all of our students have. When a child gets it, they understand how much Christ loves them, what he did for them, is just a great thing. Hearing them tell each other, "I forgive you," rather than it's okay, when someone apologizes. Um, the fact I mentioned earlier, where their aggressive behaviors have subsided mostly, um, has been very good. We have math and reading blocks that have now helped us put kids where they need to be, so that they can learn, and not just Swahili speaking, but everybody. So it's a very, very good thing that we've wanted to do that for a long time. One of my teachers said our students feel overly loved. Okay. And I'll go with one more thing and on that, and that God gives us people that we don't see coming. In looking for an art teacher, someone saw on the website, on the district site, we needed an art teacher. She called and in summer and wanted to know about our school. And when I told her what we were doing, she said, "This is what I've been praying for because I just came back from Ethiopia in doing this kind of ministry." And so she is with us now, not just doing art, but also helping us understand better what it's like to deal with people from another culture. God sent her to us. We didn't find her, and that's the way God works, as we know. So we in summary, if somebody wanted to do this, significant planning ahead, which is something that we didn't do. Um, uh, Obviously getting your teachers ahead of the game, also trained in how to educate multilingual students. Um, and if we had a multilingual pastor, that would be great. Um, a lot of these kids, they go to a church on their side of town, where their pastor is the dad of one of the students. So we don't really get them here, but we do know that they are hearing the gospel where they are. So, okay, I'll stop.
So, Bob, that is awesome. Thank you so much. Great job of covering an amazing ministry. And, obviously, I'll say another one of the requirements is to have a champion who's your administrator. Bob, you are certainly that. If you don't have the leader setting the tone and being all in and really recognizing too the challenges, but then countering those with the joys, it doesn't work either. So thank you for your leadership and the amazing things that are going on at the school there, at the church there. Just an incredible ministry. I will say some of the things, though, it translates all over, right? No matter where you are. You talked about the students coming in and creating a sense of community and culture and identity in Christ and knowing Christ. That's our Lutheran schools, all of our Lutheran schools. I often say, are you a student at a Lutheran school or are you a Lutheran school student? And that's what you're creating. You're creating Lutheran school students. They know the community. They know the love of Christ, and they also recognize confession and absolution, the heart of our Lutheran schools, and that reconciliation with one another, and recognizing the ultimate reconciliation we have with God, and especially this time of year. You had a victory this just a few days ago that you're telling about yesterday. Two more students just enrolled in your school because the word is getting out and people recognize you as a school of choice when you're coming here. So the community talks about you and recognizes that. So that's amazing too. But if you would, we'll see if we have any questions here. If anybody would like to toss some items out or follow-ups.
Well, Bob, I just want to again commend, and I think you hit on something. So often when we plan our mission efforts, it fails. When we read and react, while it causes all kinds of stress, it's actually the way, again, we see the number of times that you have had the Lord drop resources in your lap, and I guess the one question I have is how have you been able to allow or to set up the culture among your staff to start thinking, not giving up their thought process as educators, but how do you enculturate that DNA of being a missionary in a congregation that, if you were, you are Our Fathers is a highly traditional South Side, high liturgical congregation. We're not dealing with something that is on the cutting edge of what people would call missional in our society. How have you been able to inject that kind of DNA as missionaries in place at Our Fathers?
Well, I mentioned that I've got an incredible staff who they never say no. When it comes to, hey, we need to try this. Okay, let's try it. Um, when I've had to look for people to fill vacancies in staff because I've had some people leave. It's usually the art teacher. I don't know what the deal is on there, but but we got the person that we got um to come in, but now I'm losing that art teacher because I'm moving her into a classroom for next year so she can be full time and she can continue to do what she's doing. So I need an art teacher again. However, when I go and I end up interviewing somebody, I tell them up front what we do here. I let them know this is the demographic of our school. And this is how we do things. And then I let them kind of decide, hey, I think that's great, or I don't know if I want to, or if I can fit in with that, that type of school. So I don't ever want to have somebody come in and go, wait, you have kids that speak Swahili? I didn't know that. And I have to like try to communicate with them and their families. No, they need to know all of that up front. No one has left here, no staff person has left here because we're doing what we're doing. If they've left, it's been for another reason, and then we try to fill that spot.
Excellent. Excellent.
I think that's incredibly important, Bob. You mentioned, be who you are, don't hide behind anything, be up front all the time. It just brought up, I was thinking about the Association of Christian Schools International did a study of 3,000 schools, about 140 some of our Lutheran schools are part of that study. And it basically said just that. Be who you are and lean into that. Know your context, know your community as well. And again, that translates for all of us. As you were speaking, sometimes we forget the basic needs, Maslow's hierarchy of needs of you got students coming to you. How are they going to learn when they're hungry or they have no clothes or all these other things that are going on in their lives? And we sometimes, because we're coming from different backgrounds, step into the classroom and try to teach, and we can't figure out why the student, is not learning, or we're so frustrated with them, or why are they acting out? And again, one of the highlights of being in Lutheran school is understanding every child is made in God's image. And it's our job to also care for them and allow them to recognize that might mean they come to school and they need some breakfast. They might need lunch. They might need creative transportation to get home or some of these other things. And again, it's amazing what you have built there. But again, I think it translates to all of our Lutheran schools, whomever is coming in. It's that same concept of recognizing the needs of our students. And we have students that are coming from broken families and homes that they aren't getting a meal before they come to our school. And then as a teacher, am I adding on to that by disciplining them for something that really is beyond their control, that I'm hungry and that's why I'm acting out, or I don't have clothes and I'm embarrassed or something like
Or
that.
they've had
So know our
conflict.
kids, right?
Yeah, or they've had conflict on the
Yeah.
way to school, and
Mm-hmm.
they're trying to deal with that conflict in a positive way, which is hard for them to do because they're kids, And so
Absolutely.
our teachers are good at noticing that, hey, there's something going on here, and trying to take care of that, with those kids. So
That's just amazing. Yeah, and Tom made a comment here in the chat about helping him better understand. It does translate overall, and really, as educators, as an administrator, and I didn't learn this until a few years into my being an administrator. First, seek to understand, right? Don't just all of a sudden think you know it. and you come in trying to solve something that you have no clue about and you have no understanding about. So first seek to understand and gain that clarity so that you can respond appropriately. Just
Yeah.
and
I
that's what I
haven't.
see you doing.
Yeah, and
Amazing.
I'll say this too. I when I became interim principal, that was the first time I had been a principal, period,
Hmm.
anywhere. So it was, kind of a new thing for me. I'd done athletics for years, and when it was required, sort of, for me to move into the spot, I had to lean on my athletic administration, background, because I do have a master's in athletic administration. Um, Similar, but still a little bit different too. Um, so I've been learning, how to do things, because when I first agreed, I asked the school board president, I was like, yeah, I'm not sure about this. I mean, I'll do it. And he said, don't worry, you're going to make a lot of mistakes. Okay, we
Yeah.
all do, because he was a longtime administrator himself. He said, we all do. Don't worry about it. You'll learn from it, and it'll be okay.
Great words of advice because we all
Yes.
do, and it's how you deal with that mistake that makes the difference,
Yeah.
and that's the important process.
This is a beautiful example of finding a community need and filling it, acting it, and seeing the tremendous growth that God provides when we open our eyes to that. How did this outreach come about? How did you say this is the direction that we want to go?
Well, um, it wasn't me, because I was teacher at that time. So my predecessor is the one that had the connections, and he actually had experience as a young man. His father was missionary, and he did some of his growing up in Japan. Okay. And then in his ministry here in the United States, he's done things with other cultures. Okay. So when he was our administrator, he brought that mindset in. How he found people on the north side, I don't know. I had never been to the north side until we started doing this. And there was a period of time where I was driving one of those three vans in the morning and the afternoon to transport kids. And it was an eye opener for me. Like, wow, you know, these neighborhoods are really um, impoverished, and so the understanding where these kids are coming from. And um, anytime I hear of violence on the north side, I pay attention to street names, because I know where our kids live, and sometimes it's a little scary, realizing that that's not too far from where so and so lives. But anyway, how we came about that, Greg, was somebody else's doing. I got handed the football and was asked to run with it, rather than punt.
Yeah. Well, you have run well. Thank you.
Yes, absolutely.
I guess the final thing, and we've kind of danced around this a little bit. What's been the impact on the folks who are lifelong Our Fathers people? How has that impacted the congregation? Obviously, we see the staff impact, we see the impact on the kids in the school. Has there been a radiating effect into the congregation with this?
Oh yeah, absolutely. When we have our annual angel tree um, thing at Christmas time, okay, they give and give and give, because they know that it's going mainly to those families in our school,
Mhm.
who really need stuff. People give donations specifically toward what we call the Congolese Mission Fund, um, so that things can happen. They can have the things that they need. So they embraced the congregation embraced it big time. Um, in fact, there's an elderly lady. She brags about how old she is, because she's in her mid-90s, but she's a faithful attendee of Wednesday morning Bible class. And sometimes I get a chance to pop in there, um, before they get started. And it's always, oh, here, I've been meaning to give you this. And she, has a rolled up $20 bill or something. I want this to go to those kids. I just love seeing them here. And, you know, um, it's really rather cool. I've heard nothing negative from congregation members in terms of, what we're doing here.
Well, and I think, Bob, part of the reason why we wanted to do this was the fact that uh, you know, we're of the vintage where we remember that when we talked about mission, that was always something over there. That meant going to Africa. I remember singing, Stephen Curtis Chapman, I think, had a song that says, "Please don't send me to Africa. I'll do anything else in the church, just don't send me there." And then, then we've had this gradual transition from mission being over there to North America being seen as the third largest mission field on the planet, to now where that mission field, not just at Our Fathers, but at every one of our Lutheran congregations that operates day schools, the mission field is walking right in our door. And for you to seize that opportunity with all of its challenges, and to and like you said, to move the ball down the field, that I think is inspiring. That can happen in Sheboygan, that can happen in Milwaukee, that can happen all over. And that's part of the reason why I think this great opportunity for us in mission going forward. Lutheran education has always been at the forefront of our mission activities. And that gives us this great opportunity. And I'm just thankful to God that it would have been easier for Our Fathers to just button up and say, nope, we're going to try and soldier on with 60 kids or whatever. But to seize this opportunity, and who knows, maybe it's a Swahili speaking congregation on the north side someday. And that's where a guy like Greg Hovland can get involved. And if we can make inroads into some of these communities and open up discussions with this Swahili speaking congregation, can we put Luther's small catechism in Swahili in that place? Because we know that Heritage Foundation does it. So these are all kinds of great opportunities. And I just want to thank you for being out front so that we can raise up this culture of Lutheran educator as missionary. Just keep up the great work.
Thank you. It's not just me, as you could.
Well, you get to take that message back. I'll issue a presidential executive order. Tell your staff that I am proud of them and they need to keep moving the ball down the field.
Which is a good reminder. This is recorded, so just take that clip out and show it to them to start their day one day. That would
There
be
you
great.
go.
And I think that is a kind of a great way to wrap it all up. But also, in wrapping it up, I'll give you a reminder that obviously there's a lot of resources that are out there, a lot of people that are out there. Back in fundraising days, it's always, if you don't ask, you don't get. There are people within your community, outside of your community. Bob told a great story about the optometrist, and you just never know about the connections. But when they come, you have to say yes. It would be so easy to ignore a statement like that or ignore where God is really trying to provide. And sometimes we become the stumbling block. So we've got to recognize to get out of the way and let those things happen and to utilize others for his work. And there are an abundance of resources at the South Wisconsin District. There's resources from the LCMS. There's a lot of recognized service organizations out there that will provide and help work. And sometimes it's not necessarily what they have, it's who they know. You call one, they'll know 7 people, and they'll refer you to those that can jump in and help. The LCMS is an amazing network. We have the largest Protestant school system in the country. We have 6,000 churches. So it is South Wisconsin and it's beyond. There's people out there who want to see his work done each and every day. And that's amazing work that's being done at Our Fathers. And Bob, thank you so much. Thank you for being willing to kick off this series. as Lutheran Schools of Ministry Outreach that we're working on here. And we have several coming up. We have another one in April. We have one in May. We have a session at the conference in August at Concordia University, Wisconsin. President Metter is leading. So a lot of opportunities to hear the work that's being done in our Lutheran schools to serve him. President Metter, would you close us in prayer and give thanks for all the amazing work that's happening here?
Absolutely. Lord God, Heavenly Father, we thank you for the wonderful mission that you've set us on as stewards of the gospel, stewards that do it in our locations, right where you do mission, in our homes, in our congregations and schools, and beyond. And yet, Lord, you continue to bring that mission right under our noses. And we pray that we would be faithful with each one of those opportunities, knowing that we're going to stumble and fall, that we're going to be a work in progress, but that you're working in and through us through word and sacrament ministry, connected to a school, a pulpit, an altar, and a font. Lord, make it be about what you do in and through us, not about us. Make us conduits of this precious treasure, realizing that in Lutheran education, we're teaching children and we're showing them Jesus in the way that we feed them, clothe them, and teach them English and math and science. But it's all about introducing them and connecting them to Jesus. You give us the opportunities. You take us and give us the opportunities to steward this, but you also produce the results. So make it not about results. Make it about the process of showing those students that you put before us, those members that we interact with in the community, that it's all about Jesus, that one who lives and reigns with you in the Holy Spirit, one God now and forever. It's in his name that we pray. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Bob. Continued blessings to you.
Thank you. I'll see y'all in the neighborhood somewhere sometime, right?
You